The Rewatch Podcast presents the Police Academy Film Series Rewatch. Join us each week as we go from the Academy to Miami to Moscow and revisit every film in the Police Academy franchise. Send your feedback to the rewatchpodcast@gmail.com. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/rewatchpodcast or follow us on Twitter @rewatchpod. Today we're discussing Police Academy 6, City Under Siege, starring Michael Winslow, Bubba Smith, George Gaines, David Graff, Leslie Easterbrook, Marion Ramsey, G.W. Bailey, Lance Kinsey, Bruce Mailer, welcome back, Matt McCoy, Kenneth Mars, and Garrett Graham, directed by Peter Berners. Welcome back to the Rewatch Podcast. I'm Cory, and I wish I had a picture of your stupid faces.
You're getting good at that, man. And this is Nathan, and this time it's just you and me. Leave the dog out of it.
How you doing, Nathan?
I'm all right, mate. How are you?
I'm fantastic.
That's a lie, Cory. You're a bit sick at the moment. You're on Struggle Street right now.
I'm powering through. For the love of the rewatch, I'm powering through.
For the love of it, man. And all our listeners and myself appreciate that, mate.
Well, before we get into anything this week, I think we need to call out a big thing. We posted on our Facebook page. Sadly, we have lost George Gaines this week.
Oh, yes.
At the age of 98. I mean, he had a good innings, but it's still sad, isn't it?
Yeah, it's still sad, especially that we're so deeply entrenched in Police Academy. And truthfully, man, so much of our discussion has been based around the great George Gaines and the really genuinely memorable character that is Commandant Lassard, I should say. But I mean, he did so much more than that. He really was a really great character actor. He was known for Punky Brewster with Sailor Moon Fry in the 80s and 90s, I think it was. And I mean, he appeared in so many like TV shows, and he was in Columbo. He was in a lot of TV shows from the 70s and 80s and 60s. I mean, his acting career started in 1955, so it's a considerable amount of time ago. And as much as he lived a good life and had a good innings, it's still very, very sad to see a great actor, considering what we are currently watching, Cory.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even Tom and I discussed George Gaines on an episode of Sliders where he played an old version of Quinn Mallory, the Jerry O'Connell character.
Oh, wow.
And he did a great job there. You know, it was only a drop in performance, but, you know, we praised him. And it was kind of good to be able to get out Police Academy 5 episode on that week because, you know, we praised him so much. He really did come to the forefront of Police Academy 5 and did such a fantastic job. It was so funny. Great to have Commandant Lassard there, present for a lot of the time. So definitely one of his more standout performances in the Police Academy series. Not to diminish anything he did previously, of course. He's always funny in all of them. But that number 5, I think, was a good one to get out that week and let people revisit it a bit.
I actually just read that he was in so many films, but he's actually in the 1994 version of the Fantastic Four. Do you remember how there was a version of that they made simply so they could keep the rights or something like that? It was like
I did see that.
And it was like this little kind of scene version of Fantastic Four. He was actually in that as well. So
yeah. But
you're dead right, especially in Police Academy 5. He really kind of comes to the foreground. He's front and center in that film. Like, you could almost say he's almost top billing. Go back and watch those films and just watch the nuanced performance that he kind of gives. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, man, we're not talking Shakespeare here, but we're just talking clearly an actor that really knew his chops and hit his marks and hit his lines and just did it really, really well. Like there's a reason why George Gaines and Commandant Lassard stick out are so memorable in these films, and we talk about them all the time. And yeah, as we said before, like, I'm sad to see him go. It's a real bummer.
Well, let's get into this week's Police Academy 6 and check out the trailer. Hey,
here it is.
An evil crime lord is getting inside information.
We've suspected that there was a leak in this precinct.
It could be anyone.
Making us look like a bunch of fools!
Damn that. Hightower. Hooks.
You can pick it up at the police impound yard. Boy!
Callahan. Huckleberry.
You'll take the bus and like it now, mister!
Jones.
Target human.
Backler.
Hey!
Harris.
Make my Christmas.
Or Commandant Lazard.
I know we shall soon triumph over our enemies.
They love their work. And it shows. When it comes to in-flight service and on-the-job safety.
I have just the men for the job.
They're the biggest wheels around.
That was very exciting, wasn't it?
Police Academy 6. City Under Siege.
All right, we're back.
All right.
Shall we get into a little bit of trivia?
Yes, and steep decline, I think, here for the first bit.
Yeah, from a box office perspective, this is, I mean, we've talked about the slow decline of Police Academy probably since about the fourth one.
Yeah.
But this is where it really took a hit. The movie performed poorly at the US box office, opening on March 10th, 1989, to an opening weekend gross of $4,032,000. It ultimately took in a low total of $11,567,000, and it actually marked the decline of the Police Academy franchise. The film actually faced really strong competition, though. I mean, we've been kind of going down this path. It's actually been a reasonably interesting discussion to kind of talk about some of the other films that had come out during that period. So you kind of get an understanding of what caliber of cinema was kind of at the movie at the time. And this is kind of no exception, is it? Like, this list is pretty, it's a reasonably prominent list, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And a lot more sequels.
Yes.
This time around as well. I mean, we've had sequels in the past, but there is a lot of sequels on this list.
Up against it at the time was such films as Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Ghostbusters 2, Major League, See No Evil, Hear No Evil. I haven't seen that film in a long time, but it's a good one.
I love that movie.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? K9, 3 Fugitives, I've never heard of that one. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, that's one of my personal faves. The Burbs, Fletch Lives, The Dream Team, and Cousins. So, yeah, I mean, once again, there's a considerable amount of good movies in there, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been every year, steadily. A Police Academy movie every year. And we'll get into it next time with Police Academy Mission to Moscow, but there's going to be a bit of a break between this film and the next.
Yes.
Going by the gross here, you can see why.
Well, there's actually a gag in the film about the seventh film. Like there's a gag towards the end of the movie where I can't remember exactly what happens, and we'll talk more about thoroughly later, but they walk out of a room at the cop station and there's a guy on a telephone, and it's actually Paul Maslansky, who is the producer of Police Academy, and he's actually on the phone, and you can actually hear him saying, "You want a seventh one? Really? We can't possibly do a seventh one, can we? Really?"
Wow. But a couple of ideas were thrown around for this movie.
Yes.
It wasn't always what it is today, City Under Siege. At one stage, producers considered having the storyline revolve around the Academy graduates traveling over to England.
Yep.
And they actually approached the comedy duo Richard Curtis and Ben Elton of Blackadder fame. And they were going to write Police Academy 6, The London Beat. But the pair were just like, no. Just a flat out no on that.
Yeah, I think it was like a vehement no, wasn't it? It was just like absolutely not.
Yeah, after the slow decline and then it not quite reaching expectations with Police Academy 5, they really just didn't want to tie themselves to this franchise at all.
I realise it would have been a bit different back then, but I can't imagine for a second, in particular, Ben Elton would have even wanted to associate himself with the Police Academy franchise. And I'm not saying that he would turn his nose up at it, but I mean, he was coming off really big, like classic English comedy, like The Young Ones, and you're right, like they mentioned Blackadder in there, and Filthy Rich and Cat Flap, and various kind of other shows. So to kind of suddenly do like a random sequel to like a reasonable like a flagging kind of franchise, yeah, it would have been a step down.
Yeah, I agree. And then the other one was Police Academy 6 Operation Glasnost. And they were going to move shooting over to the USSR at the time.
Yeah.
However, of course, permissions for the filming, in Russia weren't granted until another 5 years after that, which actually results in the 7th film in the franchise, which, of course, was named Mission to Moscow. So
Mission to Moscow, yeah.
they threw around some ideas, but they landed here, City Under Siege.
Throughout the film, the mayor actually constantly forgets his words and stumbles over his lines routinely. This was actually not in the script, but a character trait improvised by Kenneth Mars. And he looked really familiar to me, and I was trying to work out for a while where had I kind of seen him from, and I kind of did a bit of Googling, and he was actually a reasonably prominent member of Malcolm in the Middle. He showed up in that show for quite a few seasons, and as this really strange character as well. Like it was like this German kind of character named Otto Mancuser, and it was a really odd kind of thing. So I knew I'd seen him. I was like, where are you from? Anyway, so just a random bit of trivia.
Spoiler alert off the bat, though. I think it's a good thing to sort of throw you off about like who the character is, like the big reveal at the end as well.
Well, let's not spoil it, man.
Let's not spoil it too much.
but let me just say right now, when I was watching it, I didn't pick it. Did you pick it?
No, I remember the first time watching this and not picking who it was.
And this film relies heavily on the simple fact of who it is. They really do play off it for quite some time. Film critic Leonard Moulton claimed his favourite capsule review for his annual movie guide was the one he wrote for this film. And he actually says in the review, I wrote, "This film is repeat only, for those who thought Police Academy 5 Assignment Miami Beach was robbed at Oscar time. I gave that film a bomb rating, 0 stars."
Wow.
I know. Truthfully, man, like as much as I know a lot of these films have issues and it's not great stuff, there's some funny gags in them, and I think there's something in them in most of these. Even this one, there was a couple of laughs.
Yeah, I mean, whenever I give something a rating, I mean, you and I use the 10 scale for our ratings.
Yeah,
I give it based on what it is. I'm not comparing Police Academy 5 to Schindler's List or anything like that.
Oh, that's right.
I give it a high score for the genre, the field that the film exists in.
It's all so discerning as well. We've all got different opinions. Don't get me wrong, man. I don't mind doing the ratings at the end, but I'm always slightly uncomfortable kind of doing it because it's just my opinion. Somebody else might have a completely different view of how this kind of movie is kind of viewed. And when it comes to kind of rating movies against each other, I've always kind of made the argument that I've seen Ghostbusters, the first Ghostbusters film, way more times than I've seen The Godfather. But does that mean Ghostbusters is better than The Godfather? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just kind of one of those things. Everyone's got their own opinion. Everyone's got their kind of things. It doesn't mean anything's better than anything else. It's all kind of, people just kind of make up their own minds. But anyway.
Okay, another bit of trivia. And we mentioned this in the first movie, right? Is that they never actually talk about what city these Police Academy movies are set in. But here in this film, when Proctor commandeers the bus and they're going through the streets, the front says 23rd and Broadway, which would suggest that the city is New York. And that is also where the creator, Paul Maslansky, is originally from. So people think maybe it was a mistake to put 23rd and Broadway on the front of the bus, or maybe it was just a little drop thing just to say, hey, you know what, we're probably in New York.
I actually didn't notice that when I was watching the movie, but now that you mention it, it's a bit strange to think that they're in New York. It doesn't feel like New York. It's never felt like New York.
Yeah, I kind of prefer it as like just unnamed Americans.
Yeah, well, it's a little like where the Simpsons live. Where is Springfield, man?
Exactly.
They never tell you, ever. I think they allude to it once or twice, but they never directly tell you what state Springfield is.
Yeah.
I think there's like 10 or 15 Springfields all across the states or something like that. So it's kind of like it's a bit of a running gag.
Yeah.
This is the last Police Academy film to feature Matt McCoy's character, Nicholas Sard. We'll get to him later. Yeah.
Yeah. He's doing a house. he's lasted 2.
Doing a house, exactly. This is Arthur Battanidi's final film. Now, that name may not be all that familiar to most people, but he is the guy that plays Kirkland's father, the guy that punches everyone routinely throughout the film. And I think this was his final film role. And I'm not too sure if I think he died a few years later. I can't remember. I don't have the information in front of me. But yeah, I mean, you know, as far as kind of memorable kind of Police Academy characters go, he's certainly one of the more memorable ones, truthfully, man.
Yeah, he always, you know, he sort of dropped in here and there and was always pretty funny with his moments. But yeah.
All that stuff. I'll never forget those early scenes, especially in like Police Academy. I think it's in 2 when Tackleberry meets Kirkland, and he meets like the family, and Tackleberry's just stunned. He's sitting in the living room, just staring at this family punching each other, thinking it's perfectly normal. And the dad and the brother kind of get into this big brawl, and then the mum would kind of walk through the scene and just literally just step over them and kind of laugh at them. It's very funny.
So yeah, that's a bit sad. It's his last film role.
This is actually one of Dean Norris's early roles. I think he only started acting a few years before. And now, again, people who may not have heard who Dean Norris is, he was in Breaking Bad.
Yeah, he was Hank.
He was Hank. And he was also in Terminator 2.
Yeah, Terminator 2. He was in Total Recall.
Yeah, exactly. So this is one of his very early roles, and I can't imagine it being a classic on his DVD shelf. But it might not be. You never know.
I did spot him though, because he's in the scene with Callahan.
Is he?
When she's kicking the dummy in the groin and stuff. He's one of the guys that are like grabbing at the crotch, going, "Oh." Okay, last bit of trivia here. Because I didn't even notice this until I read this, but I thought, well, yeah. This is the only film in the series where the Police Academy itself is never seen or even referenced at any point in the story. We're never there, not once.
I know, it's to its shame as well, but we'll get into that. So
yeah, well, let's get into our main discussion.
Let's do it.
All right, so Police Academy 6: City Under Siege. Now, we kick off with Harris and Proctor on a stakeout.
Yes.
And, of course, Proctor's just annoying the hell out of Harris by singing these Christmas carols. And we get that Harris has been made captain of his own precinct. And, he's super happy about it. You know, he tried so hard to become commandant of the police academy in the last movie. He was really aching to get there. He thought he had it. But since he didn't, then he's away from the police academy. He's so happy. He's the captain of his own precinct. And they're going to catch this guy.
Isn't there a line where Harris actually says, it took me, 12 months or 2 years to get away from Lassard's academy and get my own kind of thing? So I kind of get the impression from a story perspective, there's a reasonable amount of time has passed since Police Academy 5 and 6.
Yeah, I think so. I think he focused his career on actually moving away from the police academy at all costs. And so there's this gang that's been robbing the city, and they're on a stakeout because they're pretty sure this gang is going to strike at this jewelry shop.
Yeah.
And of course, Harris, in his total arrogance, is just talking to Proctor about how they're going to win awards and everything for catching this. And of course, Proctor's trying to tell him that the gang is right behind them, robbing furs or something from from a shop. And they get away, of course. And then all the police show up. Of course, they have to. He has to kind of eat crow about the fact that they were sitting there the whole time while this gang robbed the place.
And Proctor's desperately trying to get Harris's attention, and Harris is just, you're dead right. He's being a total arse, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. So it's a pretty good setup, and they introduce the mayor, the new mayor.
Yep.
Yeah, he's just he's always trying to think of words, he can't think of what the word is.
Yes.
And if you say the word before he gets to it, he seems to get angry with you for for saying it.
Yeah, I know.
But I like this character. I like the character of the mayor. I thought it was just an interesting way to do it.
You promised me you would have this gang in custody 2 weeks ago. Instead, they're making us look like a bunch of, the ones that are very funny. The kings have them. Bring me my fools. Making us look like a bunch of fools.
Mr. Mayor, I assure you.
Save it. People are afraid. They're taking their business elsewhere. The merchants are all over me. Some very important, the ones that feathers are being ruffled here. And now the governor is involved. He wants this crime wave stopped immediately. And he is sending in a special team to see that the crime wave is stopped.
Mr. Mayor, Your Honor,
I think what Captain Harris is trying to say is that his department will appreciate all the help it can get.
Yes, good, thank you. But due to the possibility of a leak in Captain Harris's department, the governor has chosen a team from outside the precinct. He feels sure that they will bring these scoundrels to the, to the court thing. Justice. Bring them to justice. Oh, excuse me. Hello? Oh, yeah. Oh, send him in, yes. Thank you, Midge. Captain Harris, Commissioner Hurst, I'm sure you know Commandant Lassard.
Thank you, Mitch.
Let me make sure I understand this. You are going to be working with me.
Side by side. I feel just the same.
I actually don't mind the whole setup of this film as far as like getting you interested and involved. Like the mayor actually wants Harris and Proctor to work with Commandant Lassard on apprehending this gang, and much to Harris's chagrin, he gets very irritated by this basic concept. So once again, Harris finds himself working with the best of the bunch because, of course, as soon as Commandant Lassard gets involved, he brings in his A-team, doesn't he, man?
We got Hightower, Tackleberry, Jones, Hooks, Callahan, Fackler's back.
I know, which I don't understand.
I don't get it.
I don't get why they suddenly bring Fackler back. He was never that interesting a character. Although I will give him credit in this. There's a couple of good gags with him.
He does all right. He does okay. And then, not to mention, for some reason, Nick's there. He's just stopped working in Miami, and he's coming over to work in this precinct.
And then they never go to the trouble of even for a moment explaining how or why Nick is there. I just don't did he transfer? Did he follow Commandant Lassard back to, well, it sounds like they're in New York, aren't they? Going down Broadway on the bus. It actually kind of irritated me greatly that they didn't even slightly kind of mention why he's there at all. It felt odd.
He gets a pretty good moment at the beginning because this quote-unquote Wilson Heights gang strikes at a bank and they pull off the robbery. Everything goes to plan. You see they're actually pretty on the ball. They seem like a goofy troupe of characters. These three guys, they're called Ace, Flash, and Ox.
It's bordering on slapstick, the way they kind of present themselves, especially like the big guy and the way they interact with each other. There's a lot of kind of gags in there. And the whole Wilson gang, it wasn't too bad if it was just the Wilson gang, but then they kind of go back to the hideout and you kind of find out that there's like a third party behind the gang, like a puppeteer kind of pulling the strings, isn't there?
A shadowy boss who sits behind a screen and obscures his voice and sort of knows all the answers. He tells them what to do and how to do it. They seem to be getting away with it, so more power to them, right? And they pull off this robbery at the bank, and of course Harris is being an ass trying to show up Lassard. Every time Lassard tries to say something, Harris would jump in and finish the sentence.
Yeah.
As if to make it look like he thought of it first. So Nick plays this gag on him where they take the exploding die pack of money and he tries to take it out to the commissioner, and of course Harris is like, oh well, no, I'll do that. And as soon as he gets outside, it explodes in his face.
I actually didn't mind that gag with Harris. They really give Harris, excuse my language, but a lot of shit in this film. Heaps of shit. He gets hammered in this from the early scenes when they're kind of in those briefing sessions and Hightower is endlessly messing with his chair.
I do like that. I think it's probably the best gag. They break his chair, then he catches onto it so the other chair has glue on it. It's so funny.
All that stuff is pretty funny. I did get a few laughs. The stuff with the Wilson's gang and the third man felt odd. I understand it's meant to be comedy, but I didn't really buy it. I can't imagine you did either. Yeah.
No, not really. I mean, like when you actually get to know these characters, I mean, they're like shooting each other with water pistols and stuff, and the man behind the glass has to like confiscate it and give them here. You can have them back at the end of the crime wave.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay.
I know.
The point of it is that the mayor feels that there's some sort of leak in Harris's precinct. So by having this team with Lassard, then it's all just contained within that group, and they're like the task force who can go out. So if anybody is leaking information to this gang so they can get away with it so much, then that's going to end.
Yes.
And of course, everybody's there, and then Fackler shows up.
I know.
And immediately he's like, knocking things over and tapping people's cigars into boxes of fireworks.
You know what, man? I didn't mind that scene. It was I thought it was from a choreographed scene. It was actually reasonably well put together. Like Fackler walking together, totally delusional, only aware of himself, and just causing all these immense problems in the station. And it like wasn't he setting people on fire, and the fireworks would go off everywhere, and he'd kind of make people fall over and run into each other and do all kinds of things. And that's why I'm saying, using the word slapstick, it felt very slapstick.
The one actually that I did laugh at was he comes to the door and he opens it, and there's a man behind him, a painter, who's got this red paint bucket over his head, and he's flailing about.
Mm-hmm.
And then as he closes the door, this stripe of paint goes across the glass.
Yes.
I actually kind of thought that one was funny. I giggled at that one. But you're right, it is. It's just all very slapstick.
One of the things that kind of happens earlier on in the film as well is that Harris and Proctor, I think it was originally intended for Nick and Hightower and all those guys to kind of go undercover, but somehow Harris and Proctor go undercover to kind of apprehend the gang again after stuffing up the first attempt, and they go undercover and they're window washers. Talking about putting your antagonist through hell, like they really do hammer Commander Harris in this, and rightly so, because he's a dimwit the whole way through. Like they're up on this kind of tower, 50 stories in the air, washing the windows, and Proctor's fine, no problem at all. But Harris is freaking out, isn't he? And doesn't he like fall over the edge or something like that?
I think it's kind of funny because like Harris is there, and of course like he wants to do the job, and Proctor's like more concerned with like we have to squeegee the windows. If we don't do that, then they'll scrape. And Harris is listening in, and it's not even like the right office. It's actually some executives talking about a new band called The Gang. So he thinks he's getting like great intel, but he falls off the edge. And immediately after that, it's like the whole group like playing back the recording, and the recording is just Harris going, I'll give to charity. I'll do it. Please don't let me die. Please don't let me die.
And then does like the tape recorder get handed around the room, and it ends up in Proctor's hand, and he presses play once again.
Just like a minute later, it starts up again.
And Harris gets the shits and just kind of hits it out of Proctor's hand. Poor Proctor. I actually didn't mind Proctor in this film. Like I think I've had my kind of beefs with him in the last few, just for some dubious kind of decision making. But as far as being kind of Harris's foil, he wasn't too bad, I didn't think.
Yeah, he did all right.
Yeah. So after distributing flyers as to the information of the Wilson gang and getting nowhere, Nick actually stumbles upon a paper reporting an antique diamond heading to a museum and gets an idea to actually use it as bait. However, the robbers nab the diamond anyway by cutting a hole. This is actually a really strange scene because they actually take the trucker to try to use the diamond as a ruse. Proctor and Harris are in the back of the van, and this is like again, it's exactly the same as the first scene where Harris is being all bravado, talking about awards, and we're going to be there to catch these guys, and if there's anybody that knows crime, I know crime, and just being a total arrogant ass. And then you kind of cut to this scene where they're both got their backs to the center of the room and they're looking out the windows, and out of nowhere, like the bottom of the truck, this circle kind of appears, and they steal the diamond under Harris's and Proctor's nose without them even seeing or even realizing what's going on, don't they?
Yeah. And then, of course, the gag is that after they've taken the diamond and the truck starts moving again, Harris has to fall through it. He's running along.
And they do a Flintstones gag.
Exactly. And Proctor can't do anything to help him. Proctor kind of sits down next to him and he goes, well, on the bright side, sir, cardio is like the best form of exercising you can get.
I think it was that point in the movie when I really decided that Police Academy had lost the plot. That is not a gag that would have appeared in any of the previous films. It's kind of reaching the bottom of the barrel a little bit, the old Flintstones gag that they did in that scene.
And the smoking shoes.
We keep talking about Harris, and for good reason. He's like 2/3 of this film. Like, where's Tackleberry? And you don't get much Hooks in this film. You don't get much. I mean, you get a little bit of Jones and whatnot, but you really don't get there's not even that much, George Gaines in this film. There's heaps of Captain Harris and Proctor and the gang and the mayor and all that kind of stuff. But where's the rest of the crew? I don't understand, Corey. Why aren't they in this movie that much?
Exactly. It's not until like the end where Jones gets his part and Hightower gets his bit, Tackleberry gets his bit. But you're right. Throughout the movie, they don't really do anything. And of course, Nick is like a straight man in this. He's not really a goofy guy at all.
No.
And all Hooks does is break into a computer at one point.
And there's no love interest in this film. Normally in all of the 5 films, there's always been like a female kind of cadet that has kind of been either Nick's kind of love interest or Mahoney's love interest or whatever it might be. This one, there's nothing. There's just the gang hanging in their hideout with their man behind the curtain, watching them kind of just being totally ridiculous.
Because that's how it goes on. After the theft of the diamond, right under their noses, they get suspended. And they think that one of them must be the leak. They're all kind of like, woe is me. But then they stumble upon this thing where all these crimes seem to be taking place along a planned rail link, which is the old 51 bus or something.
Yes, with that ridiculous scene with Hooks, who's the computer mastermind in the Police Academy films. And she's like, I'm just going to pull up this file and let's see if we can kind of get the rail line or such and such kind of file. That's my best Hooks impersonation, by the way. I hope everyone's laughing out there. And then doesn't Nick kind of chime in and go, well, hang on a second, like if they're so interested in this, why don't you pull up the old bus line and kind of cross-reference them? And then lo and behold, they line up perfectly. And then Hightower's big line and goes, you know what? They line up perfectly, And then the the ball drops and everything kind of works out a little bit.
Exactly. If it becomes a high crime area, then someone can buy it all up cheap and then sell it at a higher price when the rail link system is going to be built. So this is the plot of The Man Behind the Curtain. Obviously. Yeah. Now we just need to find out who it is.
So what are we looking for?
I don't know. Some connection. I mean, why are these robberies taking place along the old number 51 bus route? What's so special about that route?
Do you want me to bring it up on the screen?
Yeah, let's take a look at it.
Oops. Wrong file. These are the intercity rail link plans. They must have moved the old bus routes to a different file. I'll try another code.
No, wait a minute. Maybe this isn't the wrong file. I'll tell you what. Try cross-referencing the old bus route against the proposed rail link system and see what you come up with.
Okay.
It matches perfectly.
Yeah, but what does that mean? Why is the Wilson Heights gang robbing stores along the rail link?
Well, what happens when a section of town becomes a high crime area?
The property is devalued.
Right. And why would somebody want to devalue the property?
So they can buy it.
Exactly. Now, the property along the rail link system is very valuable, right? Now, whoever owns that property is going to be very, very rich. Find out if anybody's been buying property along that train route.
I'm way ahead of you.
They also do this weird gag there where Tackleberry's got a grenade for some reason. And it gets knocked out of his hand, so the pin comes out, and then it just lands on Harris's car. And they're all like, oh my God, we just like blew up a car outside. Like, God forbid we killed someone. They look out, see it's Harris's car, and they're just like, And you're like, okay.
That's really bad.
Yeah,
I know.
it's not a good gag.
No, not at all. So you're dead right. Lassard's team have been suspended after the jury, and they work out all their accessing data files from a computer. Nick then deduces about the robberies are occurring along a bus line, thus intentionally lowering the property values, as you mentioned. They also learn that someone must be leaking information to the bad guys, and they're still trying to work out that mystery, which plays a reasonably big part because no one can kind of work it out even slightly, can they?
So they end up chasing the Wilson Heights gang down into the sewers. This is our big action set piece for the end.
Yes.
They end up catching them like straight away. So they catch the 3 guys, but the mastermind gets away.
Yeah.
So they have to go after him. And so it's a big chase. And this time it's a chase through the streets in a monster truck.
Yes.
With Nick up on this cherry-picker that the mastermind is driving.
Tackleberry drives the monster truck, doesn't he? And Nick's in the cherry-picker, and isn't like Harris and Proctor in there somewhere as well?
They commandeer a bus.
Yeah, that's right.
But Proctor keeps stopping to pick up passengers as well.
Yes.
Again, it's not that funny a gag, really.
It's not that funny a gag.
And it is. It's just this big chase through the streets while they're driving this monster truck, and they end up chasing the mastermind into Commissioner Hurst's office.
Yes.
And then it turns around and it's Commissioner Hurst. And they're like, oh my God, like what's going on? But then immediately Commissioner Hurst shows up and they're like, okay, so one of these guys is the mastermind. So they tear off his mask, Scooby-Doo style, and it's the mayor.
I know.
And he was getting all his information from Harris, who was constantly reporting to him.
So Harris was the leak all along.
Which, I mean, it's kind of funny.
It's kind of a funny gag when you think about it.
Because Harris kept going into the mayor's office and stuff, and of course Proctor's like messing with the mayor's model ships and stuff.
Oh, that's right.
That was kind of funny. I did.
There's that scene where don't they pick up a random one, and the mayor says, "You see that one there? That took me a whole year to put together," and he's like really proud of it, and he it clearly just crumbles in Harris's hand, and then you can just see the mayor's kind of just totally dejected by what just happened, and doesn't like Harris kind of go, yeah, I'm really good with toys, I can take this home and fix it overnight.
Yeah, I've got a whole weekend.
That's exactly right.
It was also the next scene when after he has the chair glued to his butt. Okay. And the whole scene, because like the mayor walks in, he's just like, don't bother getting up, and then they have this whole conversation, and then the mayor gets him riled up, and he's like, yes sir, and then he steps up and the chair's still stuck to his ass. And he just gets onto his secretary. He's just like, can you please find out why Harris has a chair on his ass?
But they do that scene pretty well because the chair gets stuck to his ass in one of those briefings that Lassard kind of gives his crack team of police officers. They do that scene where he has to get from A to B somehow, and he's got the chair stuck to his ass. So every time anyone kind of walks in, he just immediately sits down, and like people will kind of walk through the door. And I think there's like a scene where there's some like dignitaries from overseas or something like that. And he's like, hello, how are you? Enjoy your day, enjoy your trip. Welcome to America, and stuff like that. And it's quite funny.
And that's pretty much how it ends. It's just like it was the mayor the whole time.
What are you doing here? Well, we chased the mastermind into this office, sir.
Well, he isn't here, so get out there and find him.
Yes, sir.
What are you doing here? That man is an imposter.
Me?
No, he's the imposter.
Okay, make way here. Move it. Commissioner Hurst. These people have violated their suspensions, and I demand that they be brought up on charges.
Oh, Harris, shut up. Oh, shut up, Harris.
Well, one of these guys is the mastermind. But which one?
Well, there's only one sure way to find out, and that's the Pinocchio test.
Ah!
That was it. Sorry, Commissioner.
Hello, guys and gals. Oh, boy. I wish I had a picture of your stupid faces.
Mr. Mayor!
Hello, Harris, you stupid twit.
We cut to this ceremony, and Hearst apologizes to the team and says, look, we're sorry, we shouldn't have shut down the team. We should have had more faith in you and all that. And they all get, like, bravery awards or something.
What did you think of the scene when they made the Hightower and Hooks do a rap?
Man,
Did your heart sink just a little bit?
Yeah. I don't know. It was a random scene with them just sort of like asking questions, and there's this just random rap group there, so they got to get up and like rap with them in order to talk to them. You're like,
I actually didn't mind that scene earlier on in the film as well with Hooks, and I think she meets a bunch of like what feels like mob kind of heavies, or that they've got connections to the city, and she's trying to give these people a ticket, and the guy's just like, don't you know who I am? Like, I can do anything I like, you know. See your boss over there, he's, you know, I'm in cahoots with him, and he's my friend, and I know him, and all that kind of stuff, and they keep trying to heavy her, and doesn't she end up giving them like 1,000 tickets and just totally putting them in her place?
it is a pretty good scene for Hooks, actually, the way she just dishes out all the fines related to, you know, what he just did. Like, he tore up her original ticket, so he ends up getting tickets for like littering and destroying a court document, bribing an official of the court, and
he's in a lot of trouble all of a sudden.
So that one was pretty good. I tell you what really fell down for me was after the power to the city had gone out, and Jones has to do an improv at a comedy club in order to like settle the audience, and I was like, oh, man, seriously. And like by the end, like, because he starts it and he's using like his walkie-talkie, right? Because there's no power or anything. Yeah. And then when they cut back to him and he's doing this Jimi Hendrix guitar riff thing, he's got a microphone, and I was like, I thought the power was out. Where'd he get a microphone from?
Yeah,
this makes no sense. And it just wasn't that funny.
It wasn't that funny, and just the whole scene was a little ill-conceived, and this whole film feels ill-conceived, truthfully. We're laughing at some gags, but overall, man, this is not a great film.
Yeah, just the storyline, it wasn't gelling very well.
No. They were kind of focusing on some things that I just wasn't that interested in, and I think we kind of suffered in Police Academy 2, which we've often said is kind of one of our least favourite ones, and they don't really spend much time at the Police Academy in that film, and in this one, they don't mention it at all. It doesn't exist. They're all got jobs. They're all out on the beat. Commander Harris has a precinct. You assume Lassard is kind of still commandeering the Police Academy, but he doesn't talk about it at all. He's too busy dealing with Hightower and Tackleberry, who they give nothing to. Also, something that really, really irritated me in this film is that Billy Bird showed up in this film, Feldman from Police Academy 4, who I quite liked her character.
Yeah, Mrs. Feldman.
But she wasn't playing Mrs. Feldman in this film. She was playing a completely different character.
She was like the proprietor of a museum or something. She was still Mrs. Feldman. They called her Mrs. Feldman.
Are you sure?
Yeah, she's just like a completely different character, though.
I thought that was just a missed opportunity to have someone that was actually reasonably kind of fun in there.
Yeah, again, they just had Jones doing funny sounds with his voice, and she sort of like goes, "Hey, thanks, pal," and then off she is. I'm like, is that seriously like all she's gonna do?
Yeah, I don't
weird.
know. I don't understand. It was a weird kind of cameo and she was only in one scene. And you're right, they called her a different character. I could be wrong, Mel. I don't remember them calling her Mrs. Feldman. I thought it was strange.
No, I'm pretty sure they called her Mrs. Feldman.
Anyway.
Like, I'm pretty sure Jones refers to her as Mrs. Feldman. But yeah, it's a nothing scene.
Yeah, and I just realised too, when we were talking about the rapping earlier on with Hightower and Hooks, but the two guys rapping, one of those guys was a guy named Melly Mel. Now, Melly Mel might not be like a... like known to everyone, but this guy is a legend of rap. He was part of Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5, and he was the lead rapper on a song called The Message, which is like one of hip-hop's all-time A-grade, will be listened till the end of time classics. So from that perspective, it's I kind of read online that people made a lot of fun of that scene, like with the rapping with Hightower and Hooks, and it is ridiculous. But just to see Melly Mel in a bit of a kind of an acting kind of role is would be curious. So for any music kind of aficionado out there, like it could be worth checking out just for that.
Yeah, but it's the same as having the Bones Brigade in the Citizens on Patrol. Let's have this rap guy come in because rap is real huge right now.
Yeah.
And we'll have them do this nuded version of what it is that they're famous for, and then just disappear from the movie. Like they're of no consequence.
Mm.
And and at the end as well, like Tackleberry gets like a shoot off with the main gang guy, and they do like smiley faces and have a nice day in bullets and stuff. Again, just a throwaway gag, which isn't that funny.
Speaking of Tackleberry, there's a scene just about a third of the way into the film when he wakes up in the middle of the night to an intruder in the house, which actually turns out to be his father-in-law. He wakes up in the middle of the night and he goes to the next room, and this little kid kind of comes out and starts calling him Dad. It's like, when did Tackleberry have a kid, man?
Not to mention that he was sleeping in the bed by himself.
Yeah.
Because Kirkland doesn't make an appearance. And I was like, is it weird that they didn't even just put in like some stand-in woman sleeping in the bed next to him just to say that his wife was there? No, he was alone in the bed, and he gets up and he's got a kid and everything. I was like, it's weird.
Like, so for 5 films, they never mentioned that Tackleberry had a son. And you know what? That son was not 5 years old. He was like, he was like
12.
nine or 10 or something like that.
Yeah. Like a kid, like a proper kid.
I know.
Weird.
So, I'm just confused by that, and I can't, all that kind of stuff kind of irritated me a little bit because it just, I mean, we've watched these films for 5 weeks now, and this one just wasn't as good as the rest. Definitely not. And if I had to kind of give a rate or review kind of on the film, or a recommend, I should say, I would probably not give this film a recommend, truthfully. I'd probably give it 3.5, 4 Proctors out of 10.
I just love that you're changing to Proctors instead of Tackleberries because you're not giving it a recommend.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I guess, I can't recommend this one. Yeah, out of all of them, I think this one's just a bit boring, a bit bland, really.
Did you still kind of have fun watching it? I still kind of had fun.
Yeah, I mean, there's gags in there which are funny. You and I have had a laugh talking about a few of the main gags, but as a story, as a whole, it's just a bit bland. So I don't think I could give it a recommend. I'd probably give it 4 fake masks.
Yeah. I kind of feel like we're on the same page as far as this one's concerned.
Yeah, just a bit too bland. It's a shame.
It is a shame, but that's okay. We've got one more to go.
We do want to remind everybody that we do have a feedback section. So if you ever want to send us feedback, if you're watching any of the Police Academy films, write us in. Tell us what you guys think about it. We'd love to read out your stuff.
What are your memories watching Police Academy 6? Were you watching Ghostbuster 2 at the time, or did you go and see Police Academy 6?
All right, well, let's play a game of Who Said This.
Okay. Are you ready to go?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, you ready? 3, 2, 1, scene.
We believe you guys, so we won't dispute you, but if you're lying to us, we'll come back and shoot you. Word.
I was actually going to ask if I could do the last line there just for a second and just go, word.
Word.
Who said this, everyone?
Yeah, if you think you know who said that, hit us up on our social media, Twitter, Facebook. Use the hashtag #RewatchQuote.
What are we going to be watching next week, man?
Yeah, we are watching the final Police Academy film, number 7. Actually, no fancy numbers in this title. This one's just called Police Academy Mission to Moscow.
Yeah, and I noticed that you mentioned it briefly earlier on, but there's a little bit of a gap. For 6 years, they were making Police Academy films, like year after year, and I think Police Academy 7 Mission to Moscow is 93 or 94, so...
Yeah, it's like a good 5-year gap. Try to come back with something strong, but we'll get into it.
I wonder what Leonard Moulton's movie guide gave it.
We should try and find out.
out. I'm sure it wouldn't be too hard. So that's it for this episode of the Rewatch Podcast. Keep up with listening interaction by joining our Facebook page at facebook.com/Rewatch Podcast, and also follow the show on Twitter at RewatchPod, and visit our webpage rewatchpodcast.podomatic.com.
And remember, you can always write us an email or record a voice message and send it over to therewatchpodcast@gmail.com. And also, if you've enjoyed the show, please consider giving us a rate and review on iTunes. It's always very helpful. And you can help support all the great work we do here at the Rewatch Podcast by heading over to patreon.com/rewatchpodcast, where you can make a monthly contribution as little as $1, and every dollar counts, so we very much appreciate that.
Absolutely.
All right, well, thanks for joining me again, Nathan.
All right, thanks for sitting through Police Academy 6.
Okay, I will just say until next time, fighting is one thing, but bad jokes is where I draw the line.
And why didn't somebody say no when Hightower wanted to rap? Seriously.
The Rewatch Podcast is not associated with the copyright holders of these films, and no copyright infringement is intended. The use of any and all copyrighted material is only for parody, news analysis, critique, or educational purposes as provided in Title 17, aka Fair Use. Music provided by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.com. Copyright 2016, The Rewatch Podcast. Hi, Rewatch Podcast listeners. I'm Cory.
I'm Tom.
And I'm Nathan.
First off, let me say that we have all had a blast doing the Rewatch Podcast. Every week, we put out another episode for free for you. And although we enjoy these discussions with each other, we truly do this for you guys out there in podcast land.
That's right, Cory. But we are here today to tell you about Patreon. Every week, there are costs involved in podcasting about film and television, including hosting and bandwidth charges, our own personal internet usage, and film or show rentals and purchases. So, we're asking you to become a Patreon supporter.
If you can afford as little as $1 to throw our way per month, it would really help us keep the lights on. And if you want to send $100 our way every month, we wouldn't turn that down either. But it's your choice, and we appreciate the support you bring.
As always, we strive to bring you the best quality shows we can create, and we hope that you enjoy them. So head on over to patreon.com/rewatchpodcast to become one of our patrons and show your support for the Rewatch Podcast.
And if we get enough patrons, we may even be able to produce exclusive content just for the supporters in the form of simply getting episodes before the main feed release, or even bonus film discussion episodes as a thank you for your support. The website again is patreon.com/rewatchpodcast.
Thanks, everyone.